Welcome to the wonderful world of printing on a press. A mechanical press was first attributed in the 1400s in Korea for the usage of movable type printing. Later on, in the 1500s, it became popularized by Gutenberg to create the Gutenberg Bible. Since that point, presses have been redesigned to suit different types of printing. In this video, you will learn how to use the print press. This video can be applied to any type of printing like relief printing, monoprinting, and intaglio, to name a few. I am demonstrating with a photopolymer plate. Remember, for each type of paper and thickness of block or plate, you will need to readjust the pressure of the print press. Here are the different things that you need to use for the print press. You'll need an inking plate, press blankets, newsprint, your paper, your plate or block, pen, tape, brayer, ink, and a palette knife, to name a few. Now I'm going to talk about the print press. There are different parts of the print press that you'll need to know. There's the press bed, the press drum, the crank handle, and the pressure gauge. This is my press that is in the print shop, which I'll be demoing from. And it is a small tabletop version, which you're going to see it's the same as all the other presses and how they operate for an etching or relief press. In this part of the video, I'm going to show you how to set up the press bed so that now we know the pressure of the paper which you'll be using for the polymer plate. I'm putting down the paper and I'm making sure that it is in the middle of the bed. To make it easier, what you can do is actually put masking tape all along the edge of the paper so that each time when you go back to print on this paper, you'll know where to put it for the next part of the edition. So it just makes it easier for you in the long run to keep working when you're printing your edition. Once I'm finished with this part, I'm going to then align the plate. This is always true of anything that you put on a relief or etching press. Nothing will change. So this is the simplest way of doing registration. There are other complicated ways that I can show in other videos, but for us right now, this is the easiest way to understand how to set up our press. So now that I have the paper outlined, I can then take my plate, and the plate that I'll be using is a polymer plate. But again, this always translates to any other woodblock or etching type. So you'll see that here there's the grid, and I'm putting it right in the middle. So that will account for where the plate falls within the paper borders. The easiest way to do it, again, is either you can mark it with a Sharpie, but I would prefer you to use just masking tape again. So I'm going to hurry through this part. So the next part after you're done with this is you're going to put masking tape on the side of the press bed. You want to mark where it is in the middle of the plate as well as at the end of the paper and at the beginning of the paper. That way when you're setting the press pressure, you know exactly where the middle of the plate is. Now I'm going to put down newsprint, and what I like to do is tape it at the top. I put 3 sheets of newsprint to cushion the block and the paper, and then it also protects the blankets from getting ink on them. So you can see as you're working, you can keep that the newsprint on the press bed, just lift it up, and it's like a little book. At this point now I'm going to show you the differences between the blankets, because you'll be putting blankets on top of the paper. So when you see it, or the blankets, you're going to take them out from the yellow container below each press. This diagram shows you the order of where you're going to place everything. So there's the press drum, a medium blanket, or called the pusher, the thickest blanket, which is the cushion, and the thinnest blanket, which is the sizing and the catcher. And then you'll see the 3 newsprint sheets, your paper, the block, and the press bed. Make sure that your plate or block is facing image side facing up toward you, and the paper is facing the front side toward the block. That is really important. And so here they are, the different blankets that we're using. And you'll be able to see them closer up, but I just wanted to show you them from the diagram to what they look like in the reel. And I have them actually in order so that you can just put them back down onto the bed. Make sure that you read the directions on the blankets of which side is the up and which side is down. Now, it's easier to have someone else help you when you're putting the blankets down because they're kind of floppy and big. You want to make sure that the blankets are right in the middle of the press bed so they don't get caught. Now, see how I just pointed toward the masking tape? That's where you know that you're going to roll the bed right underneath the drum. So what you're going to do is look at the side of each gauge. You're going to match up the lines. There are lines on either side of the press bed. It's easier also to have someone help you so that you can say at the top part, what is the number? And then the plate, the plastic plate, what is that number? And then you want to make them correspond to one another. You're going to rotate the gauge handle until it's tight against the press, but you want to make sure that both of the gauges are on the same exact lines. I would also then mark this in a notebook. That way you know what it is the next time you come back. So you're going to go do a pass through the drum, and then you only need to do it once. You go back and forth. That's a pass. Pull up the blankets, pull up the newsprint. See, now they're nicely caught in there, so it's easier for you when you go back to print. And now you're taking your paper off. It's a bit hard to see, but at this point, what you're going to look for is the plate mark. The plate mark, you'll kind of notice here, is the mark around the plate. And then you want to make sure that there's nothing called a stress, which is the little lines that you'll see on the edges of the corners of the plate or the block. And that means that you have too much pressure. If you don't see an even amount of the plate mark on the paper, that means one side is looser than the other. So then you're going to readjust it. Make sure that you always set the pressure for the press bed with the same exact paper and the same block, because each person's block or paper will be different. So you want to always make sure that everything is tailor-made for you. So there is the impression from the block or the polymer plate, and at least you can see what it looks like. At this point, I'm going to ink up the polymer plate. I've shown in previous demos how to ink up a plate. It's the same as when you're working on a press. Always choose a brayer that is bigger than one side of the plate. Now we're going to put down on a clean plexi some ink. Remember, if you're mixing ink, you want to have enough for the entire edition. I'm only going to pull 1 or 2 for you. So basically, I'm just putting it in the corner, the ink, and mixing it so that it's completely homogeneous. Now I'm pulling a ribbon, and that means 1 stripe of ink that's the same exact amount. across the plate, and I want to smooth it out, and then I'm going to roll my brayer across. And you want to make an even surface like velvet. You're going to go back and forth and back and forth. And remember, each time that you ink up a plate and then you print, you're going to go back you're going to go back and ink up again. Notice how even the brayer is a smooth velvety texture. I like to ink up on paper. It's a bit wasteful, but you can use that later on to clean. The reason is I don't like to get the table messy. It's really easy to clean up. You use Dawn and water to clean everything at the end. So you can see I'm just rolling it across. Those are called passes again. The harder you push, the more ink you apply. The faster you push or you pull up, you're basically going to be taking off ink. So here I am pushing really hard, and that means you'll have more ink on that. So depending on what you're going to be using, like a wood block, a linoleum, a polymer plate, you're going to have different amounts of ink qualities that you're using. So meaning, like, let's say wood, it absorbs the ink, so it will take longer for you to actually print a good graphic quality, meaning totally black and or contrasty print. So now I'm going to roll this through the press, and this is my first print. It's also nice to have someone else help you, because if you're the printer, you'll have inky fingers, and so you really want someone else to touch your paper and also the press bed, because you don't want fingerprints everywhere. It's not a good look. Here I am pulling off the paper, and you can see that here's the polymer plate, and that has been inked, and then also the image on that's transferred onto the paper. Here I'm going to run it through again. So this time I inked it up again. You didn't see me, but you already saw that once before. Putting down the newsprint, putting down the blankets, running through the press through it again, and then doing the pass. And after that, you're going to pull up the blankets, pull up the paper, and this is what's called a ghost. So ghost is where I didn't ink it up totally, and I'm just basically taking ink off, so it's a lighter color. And you can get multiple prints out of one inking if you're careful about knowing how much ink you have on the plate. So I would always keep track of how many times I roll my brayer with the ink across my plate. And that, my friends, is how to print on a press. And you can see I've even shown you guys what the different polymer plates look like. And if you look in my demo, my lecture, you're going to see even more examples. So here I am analyzing with the student what it looks like. Remember, in all printmaking except screen print, everything is mirror image. And you can see the ghost versus the newly inked plate. Here is what I'm cleaning up with. It's really easy. First, you're going to take your palette knife, go across the plexi, take off as much ink as you possibly can. And then if you want, you can save it if it's a specialized color. If you don't have very much, then you can just throw it away. But make sure to take off as much ink as possible off of all things that have ink on it, meaning the brayer and the palette knife and your plexiglass that you're inking up on. When you're done, you can throw away that piece of paper that has all the ink on it and then wash everything with soap and water. And at the end here, now you'll see an example of all of the different ways and colors that I've printed. So I'll also hang this sheet up in the shop, but you can see the polymer plate, the test for the pressure, what it looks like printed in black versus blue, a ghost print, and an embossed print. And the embossed print, as I've shown in class, means that you've actually not inked up the plate. So it looks really beautiful as well. And you can use the same plate over and over again for as long as you like.